week's chapter is on imagery, and today I have Amanda Green with me to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Amanda Green. I'm the head varsity volleyball coach at Atherton High School. A little bit of background, I've been playing sports since I was about 8. I played softball, volleyball, basketball, and then played some college volleyball at Spalding University. I was the JV coach at Atherton for a year and have spent the last 9 seasons as head varsity coach there. I'm also the a chemistry teacher, and I also teach forensic science at Atherton High School as well. I'm also married and have a 3-year-old who may or may not make an appearance in this video.
The book talked about imagery being a vitamin supplement to physical practice. How true do you feel like that is, and how important do you feel like imagery is within sports?
So I've only coached at the high school level and played at the college level, NAIA, and even that was 15 years ago. But I think that it really kind of depends on the level that it's at. Time is a limited commodity for us at any level, and when they're little, when they're little or they're young, there's so many things that you have to teach them in regards to fundamental skills, some strategy, playing together as a team, and so you just kind of stick some imagery things in there when you can, and sometimes that's a lot of times depending on the level that your kids are on, and then there's a lot of times where you can't because you're spending time taking care of other things.
With that being said, do you feel like there should be more time spent on it, or do you think that people should extend practice times to allow for practice of visualization?
I think it depends on the maturity level of your kids. I'm trying to think over the course of my 10 years as a coach, I can imagine that I would have some kids that probably wouldn't take it very seriously, and then it kind of turns into a waste of time. On the other hand, there probably are some kids that, especially some of the players that I have now, that probably would benefit from a little bit more time with imagery.
Do you do any type of imagery training as a coach yourself, whether that be motivational specific or cognitive specific, and if so, when do you do that?
So I don't know if this would be considered training, where we do it on a regular basis and we kind of teach how to put it in place, but we do use imagery in certain situations. For motivational, a couple different places, we probably use that the most. A lot of times preseason, when they're in the middle of a really tough conditioning drill, or they're working towards a goal in practice and they're having a really hard time doing it. For example, I've had seasons where just consistently getting the ball over the net and inbounds was a struggle for them as a team. So we would, set a goal, and then if not, there was some type of consequence, and we would spend a lot of time doing that, and we would have to stop and talk about why we were doing it, and try to visualize being in the heat of a game and having, all the pressure on you, and what it is that you would do and how good that would feel when you got the ball over and in, or even scored off of your serve. So we would use some motivational stuff there. And then along the same lines with the motivational stuff, we would kind of circle back around whenever that did happen in season, whenever we were, in this tight game, in this really intense situation, we would stop and think about all the hard work that they put in, and all of those drills that they did, and the conditioning that they did, and allow them to gain confidence from knowing that they put in the work and that they were prepared for this particular moment.
Do you use any type of cognitive imagery with your coaching style?
Not as much. And most of the time when I'm doing that, it's usually on an individual basis. So I may have a player who is just really struggling getting a pass to the target. So I may pull them off to the side and talk about, not only, excuse me, kind of the fundamentals that go into that, but also we may stop and take some time and use some imagery with them, picturing what it's going to feel like, and then what it will look like with the ball coming off of their arms and going specifically to the target. So that's just one example that we might do.
Do you have any specific strategies that you use when you have maybe a big game coming up where you have your players visualize anything?
Yeah, and when we talked about time being a limited quantity, sometimes we use the bus ride to a particular game. So if we are going to, again, like you kind of said, if go into a game that's going to be a really tough game, really intense game, we may take the next 5 minutes or so, or 5 minutes before we get off the bus, and I'll have them put away all their distractions, and we'll just kind of talk through some of the different situations that we might find ourselves in, and then what it would look like and feel like to be on the positive side of that. So they kind of get that idea in their head as to what it looks like and what it would feel like to be successful in those different situations.
Okay. Have you ever encountered negative effects of imagery, whether that be on the court during a game or in your classroom? Some where maybe an athlete or a student created too much anxiety for themselves, imagining whatever was coming up, or something that's just super irrelevant that they were thinking of, or possibly even an overconfident, cocky athlete because of it.
Oh, I wish I had that last problem, but I don't typically have that one. I do have plenty of kids in chemistry class that come in and they've already decided that they're not going to do well, and some of them even give themselves such a tough time because they're so convinced that they already know how the test is going to turn out before they even see it, that they don't even finish the test. I've actually had that a couple times even this year. I also have 2 or 3 kids that they can get inside their own head so much, and they have several of these kids that I'm thinking of have really deep confidence problems. And so whenever they start thinking about doing something well, they very often can cycle back through and can see themselves messing it up. And in that case, then that image enters their brain, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, unfortunately, more often than not.
Okay, well, that goes along with the triple code model. Is that model something you're familiar with at all?
I would not say that that's something that I'm really well versed in, and if I use it, it's probably an accident. My understanding of the triple code model is that sometimes you need to be careful with the way that you use blanket imageries, because one person, that might work for one person, and they may interpret a particular strategy or particular vision in one way that might be really positive, and then you may have another person who takes it and can visualize it in a way that makes it really negative. So you just kind of have to be careful. And so that is not really something that I use on a regular basis because of the individual nature of that particular.
Okay, so that pretty much wraps up our interview, but I was just curious that after having talked about this, if you had considered changing anything about how you do things in the classroom or the way you run your team, and considered incorporating more imagery exercises.
Yeah, I think maybe I will. I think that it really does depend on the group and whether or not their maturity level is ready for something. Because, I can just kind of picture some of the kids in my classroom, especially, kind of giggling and not really taking some certain imagery exercises seriously. But I think there may be a few kids definitely in the classroom that I think could really benefit from that. And that's not really something that I've thought too much about. And then as far as a team, I think definitely to kind of help with the mental toughness aspect of our team, that incorporating more imagery exercises would be probably incredibly beneficial to our program.
Okay, well, thanks for talking to us.
You're very welcome. Happy to do it.
Sports that most of my coaches tend to lead more towards. Okay. I'm gonna do a.
What are you doing? What are you doing? No, sir. No. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you tired? Did you just bump your ear on Mary's computer? I can't wait till you're going to laugh so hard editing this all out. Or, how do you...